Yes?
How do I write a paragraph?
With a pen?
Ha ha. Very funny. Seriously though, how do I write a paragraph?
Okay. Let's start with exactly what a paragraph is. An expository paragraph presents facts, opinions, and beliefs, and explains, compares, or analyzes them. And they do so in a very particular format. First, a paragraph is a group of sentences that is visually separated from the rest of the text. This separation is achieved with an indent, typically 5 spaces. In addition, a paragraph has one main idea, which is presented in the topic sentence. Traditionally, in North America at least, a topic sentence presents the writer's opinion. The idea in the topic sentence must be supported with arguments. These are called supporting points, and must be expanded on with examples, illustrations, statistics, and so on. A paragraph may end with a conclusion or a transitional sentence. Finally, the length depends on the genre and purpose of the paragraph. Typically, paragraph in a newspaper or magazine will consist of just a few sentences. However, in an academic text, they tend to be longer. Generally, they'll range from 5 to 10 sentences. Take a look at this outline. We start with a topic sentence, then we have a supporting point with its expansion. After that, you can add more supporting points if needed. And at the end, there is an optional conclusion or transitional sentence. Typically, a conclusion will restate the main idea, and a transitional sentence will both summarize the main idea of the previous paragraph and somehow indicate the topic of the next one. As all the content in your paragraph must be related to the topic sentence, we should take a minute to focus on it. A topic sentence introduces a main idea, which consists of a topic and a claim. Also, it must be a full, grammatically correct, declarative sentence. In other words, no rhetorical questions. Finally, it must be a supportable idea that is narrow enough in scope that it can be covered in just one paragraph. Here's an example. As the Civil War general William Tecumseh Sherman said, "War is hell." The topic of this sentence is war. The claim? That it is hell. The supporting points in this paragraph will have to describe exactly how war is hellish. War is hell. During World War I, soldiers stormed out of their trenches, only to be blown to pieces by enemy artillery. One shell alone could rip up to 20 men to pieces. However, this artillery was not a soldier's only concern. 2 million were killed by diseases such as influenza, typhoid, and trench foot, which rotted one's feet. In modern wars, such as that in Afghanistan, explosive devices were planted under the road to blow up military patrols as they drove from town to town. In Syria, chemical weapons burned the flesh of children. War is a special kind of hell. If we were to outline it, it would look like this. The topic sentence is, "War is hell." The first supporting point describes World War I and expands on it by describing artillery and diseases. The second supporting point is about the war in Afghanistan, which is expanded on with information about explosive devices buried in roads. We have the war in Syria and the fact that poison gas has been used on children. And finally, the concluding sentence, "War is a special kind of hell." Notice how each supporting point begins with a specific example of the topic, that is, a specific war. Then it is expanded on with a description of a particular kind of hell. Let's look at another example. The primary cause of war is usually economic. To develop this idea, we'll have to give examples of wars that were caused by economic concerns. After listening to this paragraph, try to complete the outline on your own. There will be a timer, and when it finishes counting down, the answers will be revealed. The primary cause of war is usually economic. Quite often, access to energy, primarily petroleum, leads to such conflicts. World War I, for example, was fought so that Germany could secure access to the oil-rich Middle East, which the British Empire also coveted. Many argue that America's recent wars in that region were fought for the same reason. In addition to oil, a desire for other resources may lead to war. Japan's invasion of Korea and Manchuria, which led to the Pacific War, was undertaken to secure minerals and timber to feed the island nation's rapid industrialization. Similarly, America's many invasions of Central American and Caribbean countries during the late 19th and 20th centuries were undertaken to secure natural resources such as bananas, sugar, and coffee for American corporations, such as the United Fruit Company. Clearly, economic factors have been, and will likely continue to be, the basis for war. Here's the outline. So, are you starting to understand expository paragraph structure? Good. But still, another example wouldn't hurt, would it? Victory in war is not a result of good strategy, but of good logistics. The topic here is victory in war, and the claim is that it is not a result of good strategy, but of good logistics. In order to develop this idea, we will have to contrast two armies fighting in one war, one that had superior strategy but poor logistics, and another that had poor strategy but good logistics and was victorious as a result. Here's the paragraph. Victory in war is not a result of good strategy, but of good logistics. During the American Civil War, for example, General Robert E. Lee of the Confederate States was widely recognized as the greatest tactician in the field. His strategy allowed an undersupplied and outnumbered army to remain in the field for years. The Union states, on the other hand, blundered their way through mistake after mistake in the first years of the conflict. However, thanks to their supply chain, which was fueled by the superior industry and larger population of the North, they were able to remain in the field and finally overwhelm the South, forcing them to surrender. The Civil War clearly demonstrates the principle that a superior supply chain defeats superior strategy in the end. Now, complete the outline for this paragraph on your own. Again, after the timer finishes counting down, the outline will be revealed. Just for good measure, let's look at one more example paragraph. Here's our topic sentence. America's resources were greater than Japan's during World War II.
Oh yeah!
To support this claim, we will have to contrast the resources available to each country during the Second World War. America's resources were greater than Japan's during World War II. America, at that time, was a continental country with vast supplies. On the East Coast, America had a heavily industrialized area to the north, which allowed for the production of vehicles and munitions, and agrarian lands to the south, which supplied cotton for uniforms and food. In addition, they had the great breadbasket of the Midwest and oil fields that stretched from Texas to California, which was both heavily industrialized and agrarian. In terms of minerals, America had massive coal fields and iron ore deposits to feed steel mills. Its corporations also possessed vast overseas holdings in Africa and South America, which supplied valuable rubber, among other materials, that were important to the war effort. Japan, by contrast, was a relatively small island with few natural resources. In addition, many of the lands that they conquered, such as the islands of the Pacific, offered few natural resources that would allow them to replace what had been lost in battle. As a result of this great resource imbalance, Japan's defeat was inevitable. Okay, now try to complete the outline on your own. And here's the outline. All right, so now you know what an expository paragraph is.
Yeah!
It is a group of sentences that is visually separated from other paragraphs in a text because it begins with an indent. It has one main idea with arguments to support that idea, which are called supporting points. The supporting points need to be expanded on with specific information. It may have a conclusion. The length depends on the genre and purpose. Finally, you also know how to outline a paragraph. I recommend that you do this before you begin writing. Trust me, it helps. Now you're ready. Go get an A+ on all your writing assignments.